So I know David a long time, and I'm one of his fans, and this is going to be great. Go get him.
Thank you, Robert. All right, so how's everybody doing out there? You had a long day? I'm doing great. You know, I'm so happy to be here because I actually just did this conference in Austin last week. And how many of you guys have seen the website and seen the articles that I just wrote? Okay, how many people have not read the website in the last week? Oh, okay, about half of you. All right, well, there are some things that are getting ready to happen in the world that are really intense. We are not going to remain in ignorance of the reality of the extraterrestrial presence much longer. I've been tracking this story, and there is definitive proof now that we are getting very close to some sort of tipping point. In order to make this case, you can't just rely on whistleblower testimony, because even though they may have unimpeachable credibility, you also find yourself dealing with people who just will discount whistleblower testimony automatically because for whatever reason it doesn't fit with their idea of the way the pieces are supposed to fit into the puzzle. So here's the dilemma. You have an ancient tradition from all over the world, according to Santayana and Van de Shen, these two historians from the 1960s. And Graham Hancock's one of the guys who wrote about this. This ancient legend from all over the world in which mythology talks about this grand cycle of the Earth that takes 25,920 years to complete itself. So you have everything from islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, like Polynesian islands, going all the way through Hindu culture, Buddhist culture, Muslim culture, all the ancient cultures, Celtic, Native American, South American, you name it. Everywhere you go in the world, there's all these specific metaphors that are being used to talk about what we'll just call, for shorthand, the 25,000-year cycle. This 25,000-year cycle was given such importance because it was a time of great and tremendous change. The changes are very uniform throughout many different prophecies. The changes that the prophecies refer to include a very dark time on the planet, a time of tribulation as it was referred to in the Bible. Now, when people think about biblical prophecy, they assume that the Bible is the only source. In the new research I've done for my book 2012 Enigma, I've now come into incontrovertible evidence that many of those Bible prophecies were hand-me-downs, which originally go back to a lost ancient civilization that was displaced by the movement of the ice caps and was once located in Siberia. The original civilization appears to have existed around 12,000 years ago, before this ice age came into play. And the original scriptures from this ancient civilization were inherited and then rewritten and broken down into two different religious traditions. But the religious traditions have a wealth of intertwining information that shows that they're both coming from the same common source. The intertwining information includes very specific things like the name of the king. In Hinduism, his name is Yuma, and in Zoroastrianism, his name is Yima, but it's the same guy. There's many, many, many parallels between Hinduism and Zoroastrianism. So you have to get into what Zoroaster was about, because Zoroaster was a guy who inherited these traditions from this Siberian civilization, which was not called Siberia back then. It was called the Aryan civilization. Now this is where it gets weird, because when you think about the Germans and the Nazis and they're looking for the Aryan Brotherhood, in fact, the closest descendants of the Aryan race were actually people in the Middle East, not white people. People in India, people in the Middle East are the Aryans. That's one of those weird things that's happened. It's almost like the guys that came in later wanted to kind of glom onto that foundation because it was so brilliant and so amazing. So Zoroastrianism is not something I'm recommending we all go run and convert into, even though it's got some really powerful information. For example, if you're a fundamentalist Zoroastrian, and there are still about 300,000 of them in the world, mostly in Iran, but they're all around the world. If you're a fundamentalist Zoroastrian, then if you're married to a woman and she has her period, you get to ignore her for 5 days. Don't talk to her. Don't even go into the room. Just, you're over there, I'm over here. That's it. It's woman's time. Go away. Because they believe that she's surrounded by dark spirits or something like this. So I'm not saying that everything that this religion says is true. But what I am saying is that within Zoroastrianism, according to this very heavy-duty scholarly book that I found, 500 pages thick, it's about like this. It's about $1 a page to actually buy this book on Amazon, and that's the discounted rate. $500 to buy this book. But this is heavy-duty scholarship, loaded with endnotes and references. One of the things I always do is I flip to the back of a book and I see how many references there are, and that tells me how heavy the book is. This book is like, the reference alone is like that thick. It's incredible. And every page, there's footnotes on the bottom of the page. It can take up to a third of the page. So it's very, very dense. And it's the best resource on Zoroastrian prophecy there is. And here's the thing, right? What if all the Christian prophecy, all the Hindu prophecy about the coming Satya Yuga, or the Golden Age, all traces back to something else, and Zoroastrianism actually kept better records on it than the Hindus did? And so by the time you get to the Christian Bible, you've got like 10,000 years of it, or 8,000 years of it being watered down. Almost 10,000 years, really. So when you get back to Zoroastrian prophecy, that's where we have the closest connection to the original group of whoever it was that came to the planet and impregnated this message into world myths. Because all the myths speak about gods or angels that came to the planet and gave them these messages. If that's true, then the farther back we go, the closer we get to the source of what was originally being said. Now, Zoroaster might himself have had problems with his wife. Maybe that's why he put the 5-day clause in there. They also really love dogs, but they think cats are evil. So if you're a cat person, don't be a Zoroastrian. Here's the very interesting thing, though. Zoroastrian prophecy does speak about the end of the age and the coming of a golden age, but they don't say that the whole planet's going to be destroyed. That's stuff that came in later when other people layered on their own biases to the original meat. This is one of the cores that's going into my new book that I've never talked about before, so even if you've followed all my stuff, this is new material I'm giving you tonight. So as this goes into our modern time, all these different ancient traditions have led to a secret tradition that has been kept within various societies. It's in the U.S. government as well, about 2012. The end of the Mayan calendar is only one prophecy that keeps talking about the same thing. The prophecies largely agree on when the final time is. I guess they think that's funny down there, don't they? I don't think it's funny. This must be like laughter therapy, right? They're kind of like, they're vibrating their chakras. Okay. Well, before, it's better than what was going on before, right? Did y'all hear that, like, chanting they were doing before? That was really kind of spooky. I was like, I mean, I can do Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, or I could do, you know, the Shinto one. Hifumi yoi munaya koto mochiro ne shikiru. Stop laughing downstairs or we'll come down and kick your ass. I'm using my leverage. I have power. This is like a phallic symbol here, you know. There, now we got all the chakras opening up here, don't we? David Wilcock always has to make at least one inappropriate sexual joke in every conference he does. Guaranteed. All right. So let's kind of go back up to at least 4 or 5 here and talk about this tradition again, if we can no longer have spontaneous and distracting laughter from the peanut gallery. This ancient tradition is woven through the U.S. government like crazy. If you see that thing on the back of the dollar bill, the pyramid with the eye on top, that's not an accident. It says 1776 on the bottom. The Mayan calendar was using a 13 cotton counting system. Cottons are approximately 20 years long, 19.7 years. If you go from 1756 to 1776 as the cotton 13, then 12, 11, 10, whatever, the 13 courses on that pyramid on the back of the dollar bill count up to 2012 at the top. And that's the system that the Mayas were using, a 13-cotton system. So because they had this information going all the way back to when the Spanish conquerors found out that they were using 13 cottons and when the end of the calendar was going to be, the original currency for the U.S. government has the 13-course pyramid on it with 1776 at the bottom. You can be certain that the reason why the year 1776 had to be the year that the U.S. got started is that it was the year that there were exactly 13 of these cycles left before you get to the end of the age completely. That's what we're dealing with. So, Obama here has posed next to the Aztec calendar. Now, this is not an accident. You can see that, obviously, unless something happened to him, his presidency is going to continue right through until when these prophecies come true. And notice the context is when he was releasing torture memos that would implicate the Bush administration. This is all about the change that's going to lead to the purging of these negative influences. Now, I'd like to direct your attention to this graph, which up until recently, and I'm not even joking, talking about the NRO could literally get me dragged off this stage by agents. The NRO is the real secret power structure behind the whole thing, and we have had major new disclosures come out from Bob Dean. If you go to projectcamelot.org and you watch the most recent interview, I can tell you guaranteed that Bob Dean has said a bunch of things that I knew already, but I would have definitely not said because I could have gotten killed. And now the cat's out of the bag so we can talk about it. The main base of Space Command is not on Earth. It floats up in the sky. NRO is the group that's responsible for that. Now, I want you to pay attention to the owl eyes in the graph. Notice that if you look at the owl eyes, they're surrounded by a circle, which if you continue that circle all the way across, it looks like the radiation symbol, doesn't it? You know what the radiation symbol looks like, where it's basically those four quadrants, circle with a square around it? Notice also that those squares are also composed of little geometric grid lines, which suggests the space-time fabric, meaning that they can bend space and time. Notice also, of course, very interesting flying V ships that are circling the Earth way above the level of an airplane's orbit. And then look at the bottom where it says, "We own the night," which of course doesn't just mean that they fly ships around at night. It's literally talking about they own the dark. It's a metaphysical statement about their spiritual orientation. Notice also that these are the eyes of the eagle. The eagle is able to, the owl. The owl is able to see at night and spot things in the dark and kill. So that's what all this is about. It's lots of symbolism.